尊敬的法师慈悲，诸位同修阿弥陀佛kính thưa pháp sư, kính thưa chư vị đồng tu A Di Đà Phật. We are here in the Amida Sutra, Kinh A Di Đà, talking about the different characters in this Dharma assembly, Pháp hội. We've been talking about Elder Śāriputra, Śāriputra,尊者, Tôn giả, Xá lợi Phất. We've been talking about his life. Let me switch over. Let's do a quick review of where we have been. We have been talking about Venerable, all the characters in the Dharma assembly. So Venerable Anang Tôn giả, and Anatta Pendaka, Chỉ Cú Tú Tráng Trở, Cấp Cô Độc Trưởng giả, and then Venerable Śāriputra, Śāriputra尊者, Tôn giả, Xá lợi Phất. We've been learning about his life and his friendship with Venerable, his best friends, Venerable Magallana, Mu Chiên Đảnh尊者, Mục Kiền Liên Tôn giả, and his ability as a spiritual helper to teach other monks as a helper, and his attainment of enlightenment, and his preaching the Dharma. And we spent a considerable amount of time on the principles, the Dharma talks that Venerable Śāriputra explained to others. Chuyển Pháp Luận, Chuyển Pháp Luận, especially on right view, Zheng Jian, Chánh Kiến, and the 10 precepts, Shì Xiàn Ye Dao, Thập Thiện Nghiệp Đạo. So we will continue today to talk about a little bit more about Venerable Śāriputra, because Venerable Śāriputra is known for his utmost in wisdom. The Buddha distinguished him to be the most disciple who has the greatest wisdom. And so we want to spend a little bit of time to understand what about his wisdom that he gained, so that we could gain more appreciation of what his accomplishment. In Anguttara Nikaya 4, Sutra number 172, Kinh Tăng Tri Bộ, tập 4, Kinh số 172. The Venerable Śāriputra states in this sutra that he attained 4 types of analytical knowledge, Patisambhida, which is analytical knowledge is 分别智, phân biệt trí. 2 weeks, 14 days after his ordination, he followed the Buddha to become a monk, to become a disciple of the Buddha, and that on attaining arhatship, 证阿罗汉果, chứng quả A-la-hán. Since the Buddha distinguished Śāriputra for being foremost in wisdom, 舍利弗尊者是智慧第一, Xá lợi Phất tôn giả là trí tuệ đệ nhất, it would be fitting to try to understand the 4 types of differentiating wisdom or analytical knowledge, 分别智, 分别trí. Today's lecture may be a little bit difficult to understand, and I will try my best using simple words and stories to illustrate so that you all can follow me. We learn about these difficult topics, especially the 4 types of wisdom, in order to understand what makes Śāriputra wise and learn about his abilities. If we don't understand his abilities, then we will not be convinced that the Buddha and Śāriputra are great enlightened beings with abilities to help us. This is to give us more faith in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. 深信三宝, 遵守tam bảo. So please ask questions if something is not clear. The Pali word Patisambhida, nana, means knowledge, 智慧, trí tuệ. which is discriminating and comprehensive. Phân biệt năng lực, có năng lực để mà phân biệt, phân tích. Meaning to be able to differentiate and to analyze. Khả năng phân biệt与分析，có thể phân biệt và phân tích. According to Dhammadana, the English glossary of Theravada, Nan Chuan Phổ Giáo, Nam Truyền Phật giáo, the analytical understanding or analytical knowledge can take place only upon reaching a stage of arhat, chứng A-la-hán quả, chứng A-la-hán quả. And it is not systematic or automatic. That means that just because you put in cultivation doesn't mean you meditate. It doesn't mean that you automatically gain wisdom, but you have to cultivate. You have to, and we talked about this, how to cultivate, how to transfer your meditative experience into wisdom. So we won't go into that today, but we'll go right into the 4 types of wisdom. Okay. So according to the Pali Canon, the Manual of Buddhist Terms and Doctrines, analytical knowledge or discrimination, 分别知, has 4 types. The first type is called analytical knowledge of the true meaning, Atta Pita Sambhida. Y, Wu Ai Zhi, nghĩa vô ngại trí, nghĩa là ý nghĩa. Analysis of meanings, thông đạt tất cả các nghĩa lý vô ngại, gọi là nghĩa vô ngại trí. The second is differentiating wisdom of the law or Dhamma, Dhamma Pita Sambhadi, Phà Wu Ai Zhi, Pháp vô ngại trí, which is the analysis of conditions, duyên, thông đạt danh tự của các pháp vô ngại, gọi là pháp vô ngại trí, trên duyên, hiểu cái duyên. And the third type is called Niriti Pati Sambhida, Sử Wu Ai Zhi, từ ngữ vô ngại trí, hay cũng đủ thứ, nghĩa là đủ thứ từ ngữ để mà diễn đạt cái ý của mình. The fourth type is called Patiban Pita Sambhadi, Ben Wu Ai Zhi, biện tài vô ngại trí, which is clearness of insight, ability to debate on any topic. Nghĩa là khéo thuyết vô ngại trí. We will discuss these 4 types of wisdom today in detail. So the first one is Atta. Atta has many definitions. It can mean to reach a destination, result, meaning, purpose, or the fruit, 果, the fruit of a cause, or the fruit of the cause that is reached and affected, 成熟, thành thục. In particular, there are 5 things that are considered as Atta. And namely, one is things that are dependent on conditions, meaning understanding the result of the causes, the result. So we focus, the first one is the result, okay, the conclusion. And second is Nibbana, Nibbana, which is the result of your cultivation, or the meanings of words. The fourth is resultant thoughts, which is the karmic result, 果报, quả báo. And the fifth is non-causative thoughts. Here it's a little bit difficult to understand. It means that you do things but without any egoistic motive. 自我, bản ngã. But in this context, Atta means meaning, result, or conclusion, the end. So that's what we want to focus on. The first one is to understand the result. So therefore, Atta Pita Sambhadi means ability to understand what others try to communicate, the ability to come to an accurate conclusion or result based on the causes or evidence observed or artifacts collected. So you see something, and through your analysis, you're able to come to a conclusion, just like an FBI When you look at the evidence, you can find out or you can trace and help you to come to a conclusion of who the culprit is, who the murderer is, who the crime was performed by. So that's the knowledge that allows you to see all the information, but it comes down to, it gives you insight. I was reading a newspaper, and it says that in today's technology, today's world, there's a lot of information, right? A lot of information is collected from our phone. Whenever we go on to the internet, we type in something, that information is collected. When we buy something, that information is collected. And so there is a huge amount of data available, but it's useless if you don't know what to do with the data. There are companies who spend a lot of money to build tools, to build computers, programs, to analyze the data, to give you more, to help you understand, to give you more information. So data is useless if you have no information from it. But information is not enough. So you have to come up with even smarter algorithm, computer programs like artificial intelligence to help you to dig into that information to give you insight. So insight allows you to guess what's going to happen, what products people will buy, what features people like, so they can anticipate that, so they can produce something that people will buy, right? So data is useless if you cannot extract information from it. But information is still useless if you don't know what to do with it. You say, yep, I know that people like this, but that's information, but then it doesn't tell you about the future, about what can happen, right? So insight allows you to see what's happening. So with this, the first type of wisdom, Atta Pita Sambida, allows you to take a look at the data you have and make prediction of the future. But in this case, you don't make prediction, you know. You look at your own behavior, you look at somebody else's behavior, and you know what's going to happen. Okay, so that's what we're trying to explain is Śāriputra had this ability to look at the data, meaning how people behave, and can make prediction that this is where it's going to happen to that person. Because this is about communication and understanding what others are trying to communicate, we can expand on this to say that a person who has attained the ability of Atta Pita Sambida, would have high emotional intelligence, 情绪上的聪明，thông minh vừa trên cảm xúc. People with high emotional intelligence can recognize their own emotions and those of others, and use emotional information to guide thinking and behavior. A normal person who has awareness of self and others asks questions like, what are my emotional strengths? What are my emotional weaknesses? They know, they recognize their strength, they recognize their weaknesses because they are emotionally intelligent. How does my current mood affect my thoughts and decision making? Am I being angry that I make hasty decisions, foolish decisions? Or am I calm and I observe clearly, now I can make decisions? What is going on under the surface that influences what others say and do? Like, we understand the conditions why people behave such and such way. Why are they being nice to me? Why are they being angry at me or at other people? What's going on? So you're able to look at their expressions and understand their emotional state and understand where they are. And so that this way you can effectively handle the situation, resolve problems, preserve harmony. So that's the beauty of this ability, is it helps you to understand the data, right? When you see people, that's data. When you see their expression, that's data into your mind, into your eyes. When you hear the voice, that's data to your ears. When you hear data, you can extract information from that data, and with more insight, you can get insight. You can predict how that person is going to behave. And that allows you to be one step ahead of them so that you can handle the situation properly. Does that make sense? So this is the beauty of this first type of wisdom, it makes you smarter in that way so that you don't create more problems. They also have the ability to show empathy, which includes understanding others' thoughts and feelings. It's not about understanding other people so that you can outsmart them, so that you can do harm to them, but to understand them, to help them, to guide them. Yes, they are angry with me, but why? Let's not be angry back at them, but let's work together to preserve harmony so that we both can be happy. Because if they're angry and we in turn get angry, even if we can justify our anger, that's not going to convince them. That's just going to make them even angrier, right? So that's going to make problems worse. So this type of ability is not to be smart, to outsmart other people, to trick other people, but to be one step ahead of them, to help guide them, right? So this helps them to connect with others. That's why Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have this compassion that we can relate to. We feel comfortable within their environment because they can understand us. They're not there to hurt us. They're not there to trick us, but they help to guide us. And that's why we feel comfortable, and they have enough wisdom to connect with us, and we can connect with them. So instead of judging or labeling others, they can see what others are trying to communicate through their eyes and behavior. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they look at us, they look at our behavior, they look at our facial expression, they look at our tones of voice. They can understand where we are. Do we need help or do we need encouragement? Do we need kind words or we need a little bit of hard words to encourage us? Some yelling or some caring. Depends. And they can tell by hearing, by collecting the data, if you will. So that's emotional intelligence. Having attained the Buddha became endowed with the above 5 kinds of atta as soon as he attained Buddhahood under the Bodhi tree. So that the first thing, that was one of the 5 types. Having attained the analytical knowledge of atta, the Buddha knew discriminately and comprehensively about everything. He was able to explain these to others. So it's not just about understanding the data and gaining insight, but be able to explain to others so that others can understand, so that they can gain insight as well. Let me use a story to make it clear. During the Buddha's time, there was a serial killer, Angulimala, who was the terror of the country. He was wrongly taught that killing a certain number of people could help him to be reborn in a heaven. So he started to kill many people. To help keep count, he cut off the fingers of those he had killed and made a necklace out of them, a chain and necklace out of them. To make the story short, when the serial killer Angulimala needed one more kill to complete his mission, he saw the Buddha, who actually appeared in front of him on purpose to help Angulimala. Angulimala chased after the Buddha to kill the Buddha, but then he realized that no matter how fast he ran, he could never catch up to the Buddha, who was just walking at seemingly a normal pace. So no matter how much he dashed, how fast he dashed, he could never catch up to the Buddha. So this strange experience created a horror in his mind. He said, how could this be? What a strange experience. I'm trying to run as fast as I can, and I can't catch up to a person who just slowly walking. So strange. So that made him really scared. And so he called out to the Buddha, "Venerable, stop!" Then the Buddha replied, "I have stopped." He said to the blessed one, the Buddha, "While walking, contemplative, you say, 'I have stopped.'" Because he was just walking normally, not even thinking about running away, but just walking normally. But then he told Angulimala that, "I have stopped." Like, this doesn't make sense. This person is walking. How come he say he has stopped? But when I have stopped, you say I haven't. So I'm running, but the Buddha is saying, I'm not stopping. So it's like, what is going on? Is this person in his right mind? But he had feeling that this is a strange experience that he cannot explain, but yet it's not crazy. I ask you the meaning of this. How have you stopped? How haven't I? How is it that the Buddha walking has stopped, but yet I'm running, he has stopped, and that I have not stopped when I'm running? The Buddha replied, I have stopped, Angulimala, once and for all, having cast off violence towards all living beings. You, though, are unrestrained toward beings, meaning hurting others in an uncontrolled way. That's how I have stopped and you haven't. So the Buddha said he has stopped because he has stopped to create harm to others. He has stopped by not killing others, whereas Angulimala has not stopped because he has not stopped killing other people, hurting other people. Angulimala said, at long last, a greatly revered great seer for my sake has come to the great forest, has come to help me. Having heard your verse in line with the Dharma, I will go about having abandoned evil. 我从此会放弃恶业. Right? Từ nay con sẽ buông bỏ ác nghiệp. So saying, the bandit threw away his sword. Then Venerable, he became the disciple of the Buddha, and later on he continued to practice and learn under the Buddha. Then Venerable Angulimala, dwelling alone, secluded, maintaining awareness and resolute, in no long time realized enlightenment for himself here and now. So under the Buddha's guidance, he was able to gain enlightenment, forever liberated from the cycle of life and death, from suffering. He then realized that birth has ended, the holy life fulfilled, task done. There is nothing further for the sake of this world. So he became one of the arhats, Alohan. The whole purpose of this story was to illustrate that the Buddha was able to understand the karmic effects of Angulimala and explain to him clearly for his realization of the truth. So the Buddha has this ability, a serial killer coming to him, but he was not fearful of death because he was to understand the conditions. He knew what to do to help this serial killer. Many of us are like this. Our lives are moving at a very fast pace, right? Angulimala was running, and the Buddha has stopped, but he was running, and that's what the Buddha told him, you have not stopped. So in a way, we are like that, living our lives. Our lives are moving at a very fast pace with our career, family, friends, social and personal commitments, and we can't seem to slow down. We are so busy with so many things going on, we cannot seem to have a restful silence. But we seem to be running around very quickly. Many people have told me that, yes, when I was busy when I was working, but I'm not even, now I've retired, I'm even busier than before. So if we're not careful, we can get wrapped up and our speed of life can be very fast. We don't know how to slow down. We don't understand the result of how we live our life, our destination of where we're going to go after this life. We're running, we're preparing, we spend so much time and energy preparing, for what? We don't even know. So we're running like a chicken with its head cut off, running here and there without knowing where we're going to go because we don't have this wisdom. I'm not saying having commitments is not good, but we should ask ourselves, are we speeding in the right direction? We're so busy. Are we spending a lot of time and energy for something that is right for us? Or are we just being busy just because we have nothing else to do? or we're afraid of not being busy. We're afraid of losing attention. We're afraid of losing our benefits. That's why we're busy. But why are we so busy? Are we busy for the right thing? And are we continuing to spin the wheel of life and death? We continue to spin it and not stopping it? Or are we slowing it down, trying to stop it? Are we speeding towards spiritual liberation or suffering? Right? We should ask ourselves that. Why are we so busy? Are we heading in the right direction? So it's not to stop everything in order to find liberation, 解脱, 解脱, but to commit ourselves to what is meaningful and skillful that leads to liberation. Similarly, for studying the Pure Land method and wishing for rebirth in Sukhavati, 要修净土法门与想要往生极乐世界, muốn tu tịnh độ pháp môn và vãng sanh cực lạc thế giới. But we are not stopping the wheel of the samsara towards endless rebirth, 轮回. We continue to spin the wheel of rebirth, endless rebirth, and it's going to make it very difficult to change direction towards Sukhavati, 极乐世界cực lạc thế giới, and liberation, 解脱, 解脱. Right? We're heading towards the direction of endless rebirth. How are we expect ourselves to be liberated, right? In order to achieve spiritual liberation, the Buddha tells us to stop creating causes and conditions of endless rebirth with greed, anger, and confusion. 不要继续创造轮回的因及缘. Right? Đừng tiếp tục tạo cái nhân và duyên của sanh tử luân hồi. Instead, we should change direction and start creating the causes and conditions for spiritual liberation and rebirth in Sukhavati, 极乐世界cực lạc thế giới. So this is the first type of analytical knowledge, 分别智, 分别知, the analysis of meanings, 意无爱智, nghĩa vô ngại trí. Right? Are there any comments or questions to make this clear?
When you said that we predict something based on the data or based on the information, but sometimes when you predict based on the information, sometimes it's true, sometimes it's wrong. So how can you use wisdom, or how can you use your practice to determine whether that information coming from is correct, or how you feel that will be correct or not? So based on this information that you taught us, so how when we analyze that information will be true or not true? Thank you.
So mathematically, when you look at prediction, and math is used to make us prediction. For example, you have this Gaussian curve, which is like a bell-shaped curve. And usually this is 95% of the data, meaning that whatever is happening in here is likely to have 95% accuracy. The whole thing is 100%, so all the data points will be 100% accuracy. But what I'm saying is sometimes we think we are unpredictable, but we are very predictable. That is why there are computer algorithms that are successful in introducing products that you will buy, because they observe your behavior. You may be once in a while here not liking this, once in a while here liking something else, but generally you like certain things. So the data that is available to us here helps us to understand how we're behaving, and we are not aware of it, but the computers know about us more than we know about ourselves, because they can look at the data from your email that you send, or the text that you send, even phone calls you make. They can translate from voice to text to understand your thinking, to understand what you want, what you need. Elon Musk says that in the future, there may be robots. And if you allow robots to have access to your data, robots can be your best friends, because robots can understand you more than anybody else. Of course, that's on the positive side. But what I'm saying here is that when you have data and you make prediction, you're right that it may not be 100% accurate all the time, but because certain data is so visible, so apparent, that you can make prediction. For example, I can predict that you're going to go to sleep tonight and you're going to wake up tomorrow if you're in good health. So you have two conditions. Given that you're in good health, you have good sleep, you're going to wake up happy. So I can predict that the sun is going to set tonight, and it's going to rise tomorrow, assuming the sun is still there, right? But we know the sun is likely going to be there because we can pretty much say with confidence the sun is going to be there tomorrow because the helium, the nuclear reactions burning up the fuel in the sun will still be there. So I'm being technical for a reason. You're correct that we may not be able to make 100% prediction, but because the way that we behave day in and day out, lifetime after lifetime, we repeat the patterns. That's why we stuck in the cycle of life and death, because we repeat. We like what we eat. We choose that all the time. We may change different types of food, but we still like the kind of food. For example, you're driving on a freeway. You're going north, 5 north. It may change direction. You may change lane to the fast lane, the slow lane, but you're still on Freeway 5, Interstate 5. So you're not going anywhere. You're going north. In that freeway, you may change lanes, right? But you're not very different. You may think you're different, but you're not very different. You're really the same. Every day we reinforce our behavior. And so we think that we can be liberated from the cycle of life and death, but in actuality, we are reinforcing it. So with this ability, this analysis, it helps us to see the result. If we don't do something, we're going to end up in the cycle of life and death in next life, right? So yes, you're right that we may not be able to make a prediction. Even the Buddha can't make prediction. But because when a person's behavior is so determined that you can surely predict what's going to happen. For example, you're driving on the freeway, giving everything else the same, you're driving 60 miles an hour. And I can tell you that after an hour, you will have driven 60 miles, right? It's pure math. So that's what's happening is the Buddha can make predictions because that person's karma, that person's karmic force is so strong, so determined, so permanent in a sense. It's so determined that you can almost guess what's going to happen. So the Buddha can make prediction because he observes the data. The data trend is going this way, just like graph. You have data points here and there, but then the graph is going up, right? So you can say it's going up. You're not going to say it's going down. The data may be down here. Maybe one data point may be down here. One data point may be up there. But they all revolving around that trend. So when you look at that trend, when we look at our behavior, just look at our behavior. We use the cell phone all the time. We can't even get ourselves away from the phone, right? And we're distracted. We like the distractions. So we are revolving around this. So what do you expect? You're going to continue to repeat behavior, and you're going to continue to be heading that way. So with the Buddha looking at this, and he knows. We don't know because we don't pay attention to ourselves. We don't observe the data that we are producing, right? Just like we even know we're breathing sometimes. Sometimes we forget that we're breathing, and we get all stressed out. But when we remember, let's breathe, then we calm down again. So because we don't have awareness, that sometimes we forget and we repeat our behavior, our habits. Does it make sense?
Another question. So same thing when you do the good deeds, when you do good thing. So based on the information you collect or you do, so you know that because that's just the information, and you know that you get the good result, right? Is that the same connected?
Like when you do good deeds, you know you're gonna get good results. When you do generous giving, 布施菩提, to help the homeless, to help those in need, you know that you will not face poverty. You will have wealth. It's just a natural law. So because of that we believe we do good deeds. We're not afraid of doing good deeds. Yeah. Okay. The second analytical knowledge is analysis of conditions, or Dhamma. In this case, Dhamma defines as condition, law, phenomenon, or thing. In short, it's a name for condition, pakaya, yuan, or yun. So in this case, Dhamma here means condition, yun, yuan. In particular, similar to the last one, there are 5 things that are considered as Dhamma, namely, 1, every task producing a result under the proper conditions. 2 is the noble path, meaning the way to get there. 3, spoken words. 4, comically wholesome, 善业, 体业. And 5, comically unwholesome, 不善业, 不体业. When a person reflects on that law or Dharma, any knowledge of his falling within the category concerned with the law or this cause is analytical knowledge of the law, meaning that you understand the conditions. You understand the conditions that allow things, your karma, to come to fruition. A seed to come to fruition, meaning that you have a seed, and you understand that you need water, you need soil, you need sunlight. You need the conditions for the seed to grow into a tree, to produce fruit. So he understands clearly the causes that produce results. So the first one that we talked about is the result. Now the second one is about the conditions. What conditions allow results to occur? For example, we say the knowledge of suffering is the analytical knowledge of true meaning. Atta pati sambhida. Tou shi guo, yin tao hua. That's the first one. And we say the knowledge of its origin. If we have the knowledge of its origin, then we have the analytical knowledge of the law or Dhamma. Dhamma pati sambhida. Tou shi yin, yin tao nyang. So you can see a difference. The first one is the result, the conclusion, the end. The second ability is to understand the causes, the conditions. Said in a different way, to understand the relationship between Atta and Dhamma, the knowledge of the cause is, understanding the cause, is the analytical knowledge of the law. 領悟法, lãnh ngộ pháp, hiểu pháp. And on the other side, the knowledge of the result, of the cause, is the analytical knowledge of the true meaning. Right? One is to understand the meaning, the other one is to understand the conditions. 未精通于法所全表之义理, có khả năng giải thích nghĩa rõ ràng. This is the second one. Does it make sense? Another example to make it clear. When we say that the monk knows the law, this is called the analytical knowledge of the law and the conditions. Yuan, yun. 法无碍智, 法vô ngại trí. So you understand the law. If, however, he understands the meaning of the speech, of the words that are spoken, it is called the analytical knowledge of the true meaning. 义无碍智, nghĩa vô ngại trí. Right? One is to understand the meaning, the result. The other one is to understand the conditions. Okay? So Dhamma pati sambhida, 法无碍智, 法vô ngại trí, is the ability to see Buddhist principles or Dhamma in everything, in all phenomena, and to come to an accurate conclusion based on evidence observed. 只是能见到一切法都是佛法, có thể nhìn ra giáo lý Phật trong tất cả sự. Whatever you see Dhamma, you see Buddhist principles. Even in normal conversations, even at dinner, and when a meal is served to you, you can see Dhamma in there. Right? When you drink your favorite coffee, you can see Dhamma in that drinking. So it's not just about enjoying your coffee, but you enjoy the coffee with the understanding why you're enjoying and understanding Dharma. So the more you drink coffee, the more you understand Buddhism. Having attained the analytical knowledge of Dharma, the Buddha knew discriminately and comprehensively about every Dharma and was able to explain to others. So similar to the first one, it's not just about understanding, but to be able to explain it to others. Because if you think you can understand, if you think that, understanding is not just understanding, but real understanding is to be able to explain it, right? Like even a math problem, if you can explain the math problem to a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old, a grade school student, then the grade school student can understand it, then you definitely can understand it, right? If you cannot explain it to a child, then you cannot say you fully understand the principle, right? So here again, it's not just about understanding, but also to be able to explain it to others so that they too can understand it. So I think another example would help to understand this type of knowledge. In the 12 Nidanas, 12 因缘, thập nhị nhân duyên, 12 nhân duyên, the Buddha explains the conditions that lead to endless rebirth and suffering. And again, the second type of knowledge is to understand the Dharma, to understand the conditions why things happen. So in this here, you can see that this is cyclic, meaning in a cycle. This repeats in an endless form. Ignorance is the basis or condition for mental formation. And you can look at the Chinese and the Vietnamese here. Then comes consciousness, 识, thức, which is the condition for name and form. And then the 6 faculties or the 6 senses, which becomes the conditions for contact. And then feelings. When you have contact, you have feelings or sensation. And when you have feeling sensation, you feel good or you feel bad, you have craving. If it's good, you have craving. If it's bad, you have aversion, meaning you don't want to see it anymore. And then when you like it, you become attached to it. You have clinging. And this is really rebirth occurs. Now your spirit has entered a world because of your clinging. You want to enjoy. You want to have a life to enjoy. Let's say that your wish in life is to live in a beautiful mansion, but now you don't have money to buy a beautiful mansion. But you always think about, I just want to have a beautiful mansion and a Bentley. That's all I ask for, a beautiful mansion or a Rolls Royce. That's all I want. So, but because you don't have money, you cannot realize that. But if you continue to live that dream, one day when you buy a lottery ticket and you hit a jackpot, then now you have billions and billions of dollars. What you're going to do? Buy your mansion and your Rolls Royce, right? So this is what becoming is. Once we have clinging, there is no stopping. We are going to have rebirth. We're going to find, we're going to find the parents and the place to be reborn. So that's what becoming is. A worldly existence. We want to live, to enjoy, to realize our wish. That's what becoming. And then birth, then that's when you have, like birth, you're being born. So birth is not being born, but actually being born is becoming. You're already in the womb, your mom's stomach. Once you have birth, there is no escape from old age and death. And therefore, after that, because of ignorance, how we live our lives, without being aware of what we do, we continue that cycle. That's why it's called cyclic, in a cycle. And the Buddha understands this very clearly, why rebirth happens, right? Because of these 12 conditions. 12因缘, 12因缘. The cycle of the 12 links or nidanas continues, which becomes the wheel of conditioned existence. Conditioned existence is the samsara, or the cycle of life and death, or 轮回, 轮回. The Buddha also understands and can explain the conditions and causes that lead to the end of rebirth and absolute joy. So back here, this is limited an endless rebirth. We're stuck in this cycle. But the Buddha also understands how to get out of that cycle. And that's what is illustrated here. It's called spiral, meaning spiraling up. It's not a circle, it's cyclic. So just to, I like maps, so I'm going to draw a couple of graphs. So if you look at this graph, cyclic is like this, right? This is joy, and this is suffering. So you always oscillate between joy and suffering. That cycle. You joy one day, or this life, the next life, you have exhausted your karmic rewards, 福报, 福报. Then you face suffering. And then when you face suffering, you say, I got to do something. I got to start cultivating merits, 修福, 度福. Then now you have karmic rewards, merits, then you have joy again. And you keep going in cycle, cyclic. So this is where we are. The Buddha understands this completely. And then the spiral is where you have this, and you spiral up, and more. There's no end. That's spiraling up. You're progressing. You're making improvement. And you're getting out of this cycle. You're no longer stuck in the cycle, but you're getting out of the cycle, and you continue to improve forever. There's no end. So that's what cyclic is. The Buddha understands how to get out of that cycle and to be on the, meaning that you don't get stuck. Just because you get out of the cycle, it doesn't mean that you're stuck somewhere, right? You're not moving. Yes, you are moving, but you're moving, spiraling up forever, right? Does it make sense? Okay, so that's the Buddha not only understanding the cycle of, endless cycle of life and death, but he also understands how to get out of it. So he knows both.
Keep improving yourself.
Yes, yeah. So that's why I call it the 12 positive nidana. The other one is, I say negative or cyclic nidanas, links, yuan, yin. It's the 12 links. But here's the 12 positive links. How does this work? The first, I say the first, but it's not really the first, but it just happens to be the first in enumeration, is that first you have this understanding of dukkha, ko, ku. Yeah, it's not the concept of ku, the concept of dukkha, dissatisfaction, meaning that you start to see that this world can no longer offer what you are trying to achieve. The world cannot give you permanent joy because it's always cycling up and down. Therefore, you say, it cannot give me what I want. That's why you understand ku, because at the end, no matter how much happiness you have, in the end, you will face dissatisfaction, right? So it may not be, it's not ku khổ, but không vừa ý, không vừa lòng. Eventually, you will see that dissatisfaction, 不满意的事情. So when you recognize that, it becomes the basis for faith. Faith meaning that, which is, you have faith that the Buddha can help you to get out of that cycle, to achieve, to go beyond your dissatisfaction. And when you have faith, you put your mind to it, you are at ease, then you have joy. Joy and rapture. You can look at the Chinese and the Vietnamese here, but joy and rapture, hỷ, lạc. And then tranquility, even more than joy, more than rapture. Now tranquility then becomes the basis for bliss, lạc, le. And then concentration, meditation, meditative bliss, which provides the conditions for knowledge and vision of reality, meaning 智慧trí tuệ, to arise. And then your disenchantment, where you see it clearly that you don't really hate this world, but you are now convinced that you have tasted something that the world cannot deliver. When you sit in meditation and you find this meditative joy, you know that there is no joy in this world that can deliver that. Meaning that your new car cannot give you that kind of joy. Money cannot give you that kind of joy. Partying cannot give you that kind of joy. Your favorite food cannot give you that kind of joy. But only meditation can give you that kind of joy. Does it make sense? Because you're no longer being fooled by the world. You are no longer enchanted by the world. You don't see it as fascinating anymore. But you see, this is so mundane. Rất là mundane là very normal. It's not anything special. Your favorite food, your Rolls Royce, your mansions, it's not something special at all because it cannot give you the joy that you're looking for. The joy you're looking for is out of this world. Xúc thế gian, chu shi jian. So that's why you have enchantment. And then you have dispassion, meaning you don't have desire anymore for the worldly things. You don't have greed for your house anymore, your car. Doesn't mean you don't continue to live a normal life, but those don't play an important part. You don't live for the purpose of maintaining that house anymore, right? You may live in a mansion, but it's just your karmic rewards, your phúc báo, that you live there, but you have no attachment. And then this passion is the condition for liberation. When you're liberated, and that is the condition for another level of wisdom called knowledge about destruction. Meaning you understand the destruction here doesn't mean it wipes everything out, but you understand why things happen. You understand the conditions, so you are no longer attached to the things that are happening to you. Does it make sense? So the Buddha understands not only the cycle of life and death, why people are stuck in that cycle of life and death, and we have to understand that first. We first have to understand ourselves, our behavior, in order for us to change our behavior, right? If you're a person who's like, get into an argument and becomes angry, and if that person doesn't recognize it and you point out why you're angry, then he will say, what do you mean I'm not angry? He doesn't recognize that he's being angry, so how can he change? So we have to first understand the world. Thế gian, phải hiểu thế gian trước, phải hiểu thế gian trước, 了解世间, 先了解世间. Then after we understand, then we can change, right? So, and then the Buddha teaches us the 12 positive nidanas, the 12 positive links, how to get out of that cycle. Okay, so in this way, the Buddha understands what makes the cycle of life and death spins continuously, and how to break that cycle, and the conditions leading to absolute joy, liberation, and wisdom. Does it make sense? So this is the second type of discriminative wisdom, 分别智, 分别知, is to see the conditions of our existence, why we're here. Do we need another example? Yes.
You say when we have to understand the world of outside before you understand yourself. So how can you improve yourself if you keep looking forward to outside? You see that there's nothing wrong with it. But if you look back at yourself, what you've done, what you feel like, is there anything wrong? And do I need to change? Something like that. So how can that world outside will help you to look back at yourself?
When I say we have to understand, you might have misheard me. I say we have to understand ourselves first, and we also have to understand the world, because it is very difficult to see ourselves. But it's easier, like you said, to see the world because we're looking outside. But the world the outside world is a reflection of who we are inside. When we look at somebody and they are happy, and we feel that they're happy, then we know that we are being happy. If we have awareness. Sometimes we look at people and they get upset and we think that they are being unreasonable, but it is because we are being unreasonable. We are being unreasonable because we expect them to be reasonable. Human beings are not reasonable, but we expect them to be sages, to be perfect. But we know that human beings are not perfect. So in a way, we are being unreasonable without knowing it. Does it make sense? So the outside world helps us to reflect only if we have awareness, right? So we have to have awareness. And the wisdom that we're discussing here helps us to take in the data, analyze the data, and to gain wisdom. It's not just to sit in meditation and enjoy your meditative bliss that you can be liberated. No, it's our wisdom that allows us to see things clearly so that we can avoid mistakes in what we do, what we say, in what we think, so that we can be liberated from the cycle of life and death. It's not the Buddha comes in and takes us, yanks us out of the cycle of life and death. He cannot. It's us. We will have to do that ourselves. Right? Does it make sense? Okay. So let me give you an example, another story. Now, this story is contained in Dhammapada, verses 9 and 10, Phả Chư Kinh, Kinh Pháp Cú. One day, Venerable Śāriputra was teaching to a lay person that when one himself gives alms, 布施 bodhi, wealth, in the future birth, wealth will come to him. But if he doesn't encourage another person to also give 布施 bodhi, then he will not have any followers. And so when people follow a certain person because you have helped them. If nobody's following you, then you have not helped them. You may be very rich, but nobody is there to share your wealth, to share your happiness with, right? And then Venerable Śāriputra, 舍利弗尊者东亚沙来佛, said that if you don't give alms, 没有布施 không có bố thí, then you will face loneliness and poverty. You will have no wealth. You'll be poor and lonely. And if you don't, if you give, but you also encourage other people to give, then in a future lifetime, you have both the blessing of wealth and the blessing of a retinue, meaning 信徒, 等斗. So you'll have people to follow you. So Śāriputra is teaching a lay person that wealth comes from generosity. Poverty comes from stinginess and selfishness. 财宝是从布施而来，要上了từ bố thí mà ra. 一个人贫穷是因为他自私自利，nghèo và bần cùng là vì ích kỷ và tự tư tự lợi. So that's what Śāriputra is teaching this person. When we understand that the causes and conditions for wealth are selfless givings, and the causes and conditions for loneliness and poverty are selfishness and not giving to help others, then we have the analytical knowledge of the Dhamma. When you understand the conditions, then you have the analytical knowledge of the Dhamma. Right? It's not just about giving, but you understand why you give and the results of your giving, your results of your deeds, your generosity, or your selfishness. This is called analytical knowledge because we use wisdoms to analyze and understand clearly the differences between skillfulness and unskillfulness. 分别智就是有善与恶分别的能力，分别trí là có khả năng phân biệt thiện và ác. When we actually put that understanding into practice, we increase the level of the analytical knowledge of the Dhamma. The more selfless we become, the higher is our analytical knowledge of the Dhamma. When one day our analytical knowledge, 分别智, 分别trí, of the Dhamma is infinite, then we become Buddhas. Until then, our knowledge of the Dhamma is limited. But why should our analytical knowledge of the Dhamma be limited? It seems so easy, right? Understand the conditions, to understand the results. But why is it that our analytical knowledge is still limited? Meaning we cannot resolve our own problems. We cannot have a peaceful way of life, but we still have afflictions, 烦恼, phiền não. It is because we don't fully understand conditionality. 不完全了解缘起法，không hoàn toàn hiểu pháp duyên khởi. We may say we understand that all things and phenomena are based on conditions. 一切法都是缘起， Tất cả pháp đều là duyên khởi. We may say we understand the principle, but this understanding is only superficial. It's only on the surface. 这只是在文字上的了解而已，chỉ có trên văn tự mà hiểu mà thôi. In other words, we still believe that there is still something permanent for us to possess, unchanging, for us to have, to control. We still want something to stay with us forever. Like we still think that the happiness of our car, with our car, or the joy that we have with our car, our family, can stay with us forever. We believe that our family members will stay with us forever for the rest of our lives, so that we don't have to worry about being lonely, right? So that is delusional. That is not understanding the law of conditionality, 缘起法, 法应可. We are not fully convinced that things are ever changing. We may say that, yeah, I understand things are always changing, but we don't believe that. We are not fully convinced. We believe that, yes, this is mine. This is me. I have it. Nobody else can have it. For example, let's say that we are not willing to share our wealth with others for fear of poverty, because we don't want to give away, because what if I'm run out of money? Then I'll be poor. So because of that fear, the people who have that fear, that this is my hard-earned money, I'm not that stupid to give it away, right? They can earn their own money. So because of that thinking, that it creates fear. Therefore, we think that money and poverty are some things that are real. We think that our money is real. We think that poverty, 贫穷, bằng cùng, nghèo, is real. We think that poverty is real, that it can hurt us. We are afraid that poverty can hurt us because we believe that this I, this me, is real. Right? We think that this is real, that I can exist forever, therefore I cannot afford to have this I be hurt. Even if we learn and then now we have gained some wisdom to start to let go, and we're willing to give our wealth away to share with others, we say, no, we're letting go. We're letting go of money to help other people. But behind that thinking is the wish to exchange our wealth for heavenly karmic rewards. 把布施的钱交换成人天福报，lấy tiền bố thí để trao đổi nhân thiên phước báo. So we are more sophisticated in the sense that we are trading our wealth for something better, right? Because heavenly bliss is much better than worldly bliss, right? So we still believe that there is still something for us to own, to have forever. In which case, we can let go of money and are not afraid of losing it, because we see that money is not real. We know that money is not real. We've been taught that money is not real because it doesn't really belong to you. Some people even say that the faces on money are the faces of dead presidents, right? Dead people. We know that, but some people say, yeah, you don't want money, give it all to me. But for us to say, money is not real, yes, you can lose it. But behind that, we still want to have heavenly karmic rewards. 人天福报, nhân thiên phước báo. Because of fear of losing, that we don't understand conditionality. In fact, some people are afraid to dedicate their merits to other people because they want to have their merits. Like, có người không muốn hồi hướng công đức cho người khác thì sợ mất cái phước đức. They're afraid that they will lose their phước báo, karmic merits by dedicating the merits, 回向, 回hướng, 给别人, to other people. So they think that their merits are real, right? I spent my whole day, meditating, chanting. I have accumulated a lot of merits. Therefore, I cannot afford to lose it. I was reading a story about this master. When he was in India, he saw this where this monk, he had been a monk for many years, but then he decided to not become a monk anymore. And so he said, I'm going to take my stock of merits to sell it to somebody so I get money so I can make my business. So he believes that his merits are real, that he has been accumulating merits and is stocked up, saved up, So anybody who wants to exchange it, merits for money, he can do that. He can sell his merits to somebody. And somebody did buy his merits, and then he became a rich business owner. A monk now becoming a rich business owner because he was able to sell his merit to somebody else with real money. So that kind of thinking is to believe that our merits are real. And therefore, because of that we have fear of losing. And because we don't understand conditionality, 不了解缘起法, không hiểu pháp duyên khởi completely. We don't understand conditionality completely. Therefore, our wisdom is limited. Does it make sense? So the second type is the analytical knowledge of the Dharma, meaning understanding the causes and conditions of the results. 第二分别智是义无爱智，就是看透一切法的因缘。分别trí thứ hai là nghĩa vô ngại trí, là hiểu thấu về nguyên nhân của các pháp. Okay. Are there any comments or questions? I'm not sure if I can finish the rest. So why don't we end here, and then I'll come back. We'll continue again the next time we meet in 2 weeks. Just to review, there are 4 types of discriminative wisdom, 分别智, 分别trí. The first one we talk about is the meaning, to understand the results, the conclusion, how we can observe data and come to a conclusion accurately. So what we can learn from this is to observe ourselves, to collect the data that we produce every day about ourselves, right? Don't let some computer learn about us. We should take advantage of the data that we have to gain information about ourselves and to gain more insight into how we behave. Because how we behave today, if we don't change, is likely to be the same tomorrow. Meaning that if we are not determined to be liberated from the cycle of life and death today, we are very likely to face birth, old age, and death in the next life, right? And so we should develop that. Don't wait until we become Buddhas to have the first analytical knowledge. But now that we have learned about it, let's have awareness about ourselves so that we can start to gain more, improve our knowledge, our wisdom, to gain more insight about ourselves so that we can escape the cycle of life and death beyond the spiraling path going up forever, right? And the only up is joy. The only way is more joy and more wisdom. Why would we not want to take that path? The other path is you may have joy, but behind that joy waiting for you is suffering. But because we are used to it, we live our lives day in, day out without thinking, without awareness. We have not stopped that will. And we live, and then we prepare to be reborn again, essentially. If we're not willing to be liberated from the cycle of life and death, to be born in Sukhavati, vãng sanh cực lạc thế giới, vãng sanh极乐世界, then we are preparing to face suffering again and again and again. Right? So that's the first one, is to gain more, to understand the results. Right? And the second is to understand the conditions why we are stuck in the cycle of life and death, but also the conditions of how to get out of it. The 12 positive nidanas, 12因缘, 十二因缘, the positive side, that allows us to understand conditionality. 缘起法, 法因可以. Understanding conditionality is very important because it helps us to improve our wisdom. Right? So those are the 2 types of wisdom that we have discussed today. And the reason, again, that we want to learn about this topic is to have appreciation for the Buddha and Śāriputra, who were so wise, who had great unlimited wisdom. If we don't understand this, then we are not convinced that why they have unlimited wisdom. And what is unlimited wisdom, right? So by understanding these 4 characteristics of wisdom, differentiating wisdom, it allows us to have deep appreciation for the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And when we have deep appreciation, we understand it properly, then we can avoid mistakes. Because of that we have commitment. Because you cannot have commitment if you don't understand what is it that you're doing, what is it that you're learning. So that's why it's a little bit difficult to understand, but I try my best to have stories and examples to make it easier. So hopefully it has been useful to you, and I hope to see you all again next time.